everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast and Merry Christmas in July. And we're continuing on our Christmas in July coverage, doing a special ranking episode where we are going to dive into some hidden Christmas movies. And this is ones that you don't necessarily think of as Christmas movies. Maybe they're not advertised as a Christmas movie. Maybe they just have one really, really iconic Christmas scene. And so that makes them kind of a Christmas movie, secretly a Christmas movie. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm from Critical Rewriting. Terry's here.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm good.
You having a good Christmas in July?
Kind of slow because I haven't been watching as many movies as I wanted to, like the Christmas movies to catch up that I missed last year, but
Yeah.
I'll get through it.
Yeah. I know
It's
been
been too
busy.
hot to think
It
about
is,
that. I'll be
it
honest.
is it has
We've been
been
going through a heat wave here, so
yeah, same in Utah. And my AC went out yesterday. It was brutal.
Rachel, mine did too. My poor brother had to come here to fix it because my landlord was like MIA, and I was like in the middle of a heat wave.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this whole idea of the hidden Christmas movie. What do you think about this? These sort of movies that are like that secretly kind of have a Christmas theme or a Christmas scene, or I don't know. What do you think about it?
I I always love it because it's always such a joyous surprise for me.
Yeah.
Like when you come in and like there's a Christmas tree in the background, or it just happens to be Christmas, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it that it's kind of an interesting plot device, and no better person has used Christmas in disguise than Shane Black in all
Yes.
his screenplays. You could have just made a list of his movies.
Yeah. It's great.
But so something like that, I always enjoy it because you don't see it coming, and it's kind
Mhm.
of a nice. I was gonna say
Yeah.
wink, wink, but not really. But like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to, I think, kind of establish a tone and then
Hmm.
sometimes to be subversive against that tone.
Yeah,
So if you want to make something kind of seem innocent and sweet and then oh and then
yeah,
and switch it up.
totally.
And so it can be a really good way to do that.
Or do bizarre things that you wouldn't expect from a traditional
Hmm.
Christmas movie.
And they can be refreshing to
Mhm.
watch, in our, as much as we love our outright countdown to Christmas, movies, it
Right.
can be refreshing to watch something that's a little more subtle.
Totally, because you're not obsessed with Christmas the entire month of December like they do in those movies.
Right.
Like you have other things to do. Like, yes, you're baking and Christmas shopping, but you're also working and hanging
Right.
out with friends and just, your day-to-day
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. You
And
still have
some people
to,
are saving the world, but
yeah. I mean, I don't have much else, but there are a few things that come into
right.
play.
I'm not dealing with terrorists or anything like
Yeah.
that. So it's pretty normal,
Yeah.
outside of
Yeah.
those untraditional Christmas movies.
I'll put a link down to our short list, and if you want to give us your own top 10, we would love to see that. And just make sure you tag us in your posts and or put it in the comment section. We'd love that too. And we also are going to have a bonus for our patrons, our 11 and 12 picks. So you want to make sure that you join the Patreon for the many, many benefits that it gives you, and including exclusive bonus episodes. But yeah, let's dive in. What, Terry, is your number 10?
On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the
Oh,
James Bond movie, the only James Bond movie to star George Lazenby. He came on after Sean Connery was done, and then Sean Connery came back right after this one. It's probably the best of the classic Bond movies. And this is where Bond gets married, he falls in love, and at the end, his spoilers, his wife blows up. She dies. But I think I remember this fondly because they fall in love and get married in Portugal. And so, that hit close home to me. But I love it because Terry Savalas plays Blofeld, and I mean, he's trying to take over the world through messing with crops, and he's got a bunch of hypnotized women to do it. It's James Bond. It's bonkers, but when he yells out "Merry Christmas, Bond," it's just it's very funny, and you don't really think about it, but it is set during at least a portion of the film is set during the
Mhm.
holidays.
I'd have to say one of my big blind spots as a movie critic is I have hardly seen any James Bond movies. I've seen these recent, Daniel Craig
I am not
ones.
I'm not a fan of recent Bond, you know. I
Oh yeah.
think I lost like man, when Remington Steele, aka Pierce Brosnan, became Bond, I went out to all those movies, but I only really loved GoldenEye, and I think I kind of fell
Oh
out of
yeah, they
love
were
with
good.
Bond after GoldenEye, you know,
Yeah,
which
I've
as
seen all of the
yeah,
Brosnan ones. I've seen all of the Daniel Craig ones, and I do appreciate these Daniel Craig ones that he feels more like a real person, that like has
yeah,
emotion. And I was just never really into like the whole sort of womanizing, like
yeah. I
it
know,
was
but the
just
gadgets and the because they
yeah, oh
don't
yeah.
really match the books. This one's a little closer to the books than the others, but
Mm.
I just think if you look at it as a classic, like wacky, I think they
Oh
take
yeah.
themselves too seriously now, which is why.
I totally
But
get the
when
appeal. I just have it's just like I said, it's just one of my blind spots.
I know.
I haven't
GoldenEye
really
was the height of my Bond fandom because I had
mm,
I no, I'm trying to figure out when that movie came out and how old I was. I was either late teens or about 20, no, probably late teens. Listen, Pierce Brosnan and Sean Connery were gracing my screen, and my mother and I were in sheer delight throughout that whole entire movie because of that. And you know, so but
yeah.
yeah, like as a kid, it's funny. And when he yells out "Merry Christmas, Bond," and it just always puts a chuckle. It's a
Yeah.
serious moment, but it puts a chuckle on me.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. That's something I definitely, there's just so many of them
There's so many. There
around
is so
me.
many. It's hard to catch up. And some have not
Hmm.
aged well,
Hmm. I know a
just
lot of the
plot
Roger
wise.
Moore.
And yeah, it's not even about like the subject matter. It's like also plots and devices and
Right. Yeah.
stunts and stuff.
Well, my number 10 is really, it's really only one scene, but I think it's iconic enough to count for this ranking. I have Lady and the Tramp. And of
Oh,
course,
yes.
the opening of Lady in the Tramp, you've got the small town America, Norman Rockwell. It's basically
Oh, yeah.
Marceline, where Walt Disney grew up. And and it's just idyllic, all decked out for Christmas. And
Yeah.
you have Jim Deere giving Darling a hat box for Christmas, and she opens the hat box, and there's little lady.
Thankfully alive because there was no holes in that hot box.
Yeah,
In that
that's true.
hot box, a hat
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
And then I said hat bag. Oh, anyway,
And
yeah.
it's so
Yeah, it's
sweet
so
and
sweet it is. Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
a
mean,
good
I
pick.
really do love Lady and the
Oh,
Tramp.
that's an excellent pick. It's wonderful.
What a beautiful movie, wonderful
Totally.
songs. I mean, the only thing I think is a little weird in Lady and the Tramp is that they give the Siamese cats, they give them this song that they sing,
Yeah, my
and then they're
favorite.
gone. That's
I
it.
know.
You
They were
think that
my
that's setting them up to be like
favorite.
the villains for the whole rest of the movie, and it's not. It's the rat
Mhm.
who comes into the nursery later on
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
movie.
but I used to, that was the Siamese to the song "We Are Siamese." If you please, I used
Yeah.
to love that. I used to pop up behind furniture to sing that as just randomly and unsuspectingly.
Yeah.
My sister was like, "You have got to stop that," because I loved that as a kid.
It's really good. So it's good. He's a tramp. He's a
Yeah, he saved the
scoundrel.
day.
Yeah,
Did
it's
you ever
so
see the
good.
sequel they did with the children?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah, I know.
I'm really not a fan of the what I call the cheap bulls. That one is
Oh,
like
yeah.
watchable. It's not the worst for
Yeah.
sure, but yeah, they weren't.
Yeah,
I
that was an
mean,
era.
yeah. Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. So that's my number 10. What do you have at 9?
I have Metropolitan. With Stillman's,
that movie.
waspy take on Jane Austen. It's set all in Christmas and then it ends in New Year's. It's sneakily Christmas movie.
Yeah, you're right.
They're, these young, rich, well, mostly rich, kids who think they're smarter than everybody else and are really not,
Right.
going through the social circle of upper New York. I don't know. It's just like,
That's a good
because I
pick.
watched this movie for the first time when we did the Jane Austen ranking, and I've loved it ever since. It was
Yeah.
very enjoyable, and I was like it, and I loved it more because it was a secret Christmas movie for sure.
Yeah, that's true, man. I should have put that on my list. I do love that movie. It's
Yeah.
so funny. I'm glad you had that. I'm glad you had it. Well, number 9, for me, I really have like pretty much any version of Little Women.
Mm.
There's none that except for that modern one, which was terrible. I was gonna say there's no version that I hate, but I do hate that. But this most recent one I really enjoyed. I particularly thought, I know you hate it, but
I know, I'm sorry.
particularly I thought that they did the Laurie Joe thing the best of any of the versions. Like you didn't really feel the chemistry between the two of them, because a lot of times it's like, what is wrong with her? Why would she be, like her best friend, it feels unbelievable. And I thought it really worked. And I thought that the chemistry between, because it also can like not work very well to have, sort of Amy be the sort of afterthought. But
it always does feel like that in a lot of adaptations.
But I thought they did that whole dynamic really well. Like Amy, I mean, maybe it's just Florence Pugh's performance to me worked really well. And I thought their chemistry between Chalamet and
I know they were both insufferable. I didn't like her perfume. What is wrong with me this morning? Her performance, like
I loved her performance.
Grace,
so yeah,
that movie did not mesh with me.
I thought they had really good chemistry, and I bought their relationship almost more than Joe and Laurie, which usually is not the case.
That is a point, yeah.
And so, I don't know. I thought it was really good.
It's true because Amy can be hard to like.
Yeah, because she starts out as a sort of selfish, snobby, snobby child, and in the 1994 version, it's 2 actresses, which I think is a really good choice, an interesting choice. And that one I do probably prefer to this recent one, but I do think that this one did the Laurie, Joe, Amy dynamic the best of any of the ones for me. It was the first real big book that I ever read. The first book that I remember feeling like, wow, I'm so proud of myself for reading this book, and I loved it so much. And I just remember just like sobbing with Beth, and
countless times I've read this book too.
Yeah. I mean, I do think this one doesn't do Beth that well. It's kind of an afterthought. Claire
so
Danes
is Meg.
Claire Danes is like so good in as Beth in that 90s one. I love Katharine Hepburn, of course, and her version. She's great as Jo.
I like that version, but I don't particularly like Katharine Hepburn as Jo.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that weird?
I mean, most of the Lauries are absolutely terrible in most of the versions. But Christian Bale is probably the best of any of them. But I liked Timothy.
William Shatner played Laurie too in the I'm pretty sure in the 70s
Oh
remake,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
miniseries. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it's just a good story
it
about
is
these
totally.
four women. And I think because I'm from a family with four sisters, it's just something that I can easily connect with. And I was very close with my sister, who is named Meg. So there's that too. And yeah, it's just one of the great stories,
Yeah.
and I think it has led to some really quality movies, and at least two of them directed by women, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and of course it starts out with your iconic scene of Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents,
Yes.
and them getting the presents for Marmee, and then end up giving their Christmas breakfast to the Hummels.
Yeah.
And
Very
they think they're
sweet.
doing a nice thing, and they end up basically getting it ends up basically killing Beth. She gets
Poor,
sick.
poor Beth,
So, oh
man.
well. What are
Was
you gonna
that your
do?
first?
It's
I think
heartwarming.
my first literary heartbreak was Lori and Joe not getting together, Teddy and Joe not getting together. I was
Yeah.
devastated by that. And then I was devastated by Beth dying. I was like, I could
Oh
never
yeah.
read again, you know?
It's true. Well, and do you know that she was basically trolling the fans?
Absolutely, she
Yeah,
was.
because she
She
got
was
so many
troll.
letters of people saying, "No, Joe and Lori." It's just like,
Exactly, because a lot of people don't know that that Little Women is actually two books combined into one now.
yeah,
Because at
yeah.
first it was Little Women, and then the Little Women Good Wives picks up at Meg's wedding.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm just because of it. She's like,
Yeah,
I'm
and so
gonna
she
put her
like
with this
trolled people and she
professor.
broke them up and she put them, which I personally, I was devastated and heartbroken, but I ended up loving that relationship with the professor. I
Mhm.
think she works it really well. I don't think the most recent movie did it well at all.
Mm.
Like her relationship with Frederick, but I loved it in the books. I was like,
I
yes, I'm
do.
okay now. I'm okay.
I do
She's
like
patched
the.
me up.
I do like the '90s with Professor
Oh,
Bear,
he is
Gabriel
so
Byrne.
good.
Really
Gabriel
good.
Byrne is
Yeah,
so
he's
good.
really good. But yeah, if people want to hear more of my thoughts, back in I think it was 2019 or 20, it was like right after it came out. Alonso Duralde, film critic, and we did a Little Women ranking episode. So I'll put a
Because there's
link down to that.
five, right? I believe there's five film adaptations.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
because well, unless you include that modern one, which was
Oh, well, I was thinking more traditional, like
yeah,
not
yeah,
up,
that
not the
modern
re.
one, it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in
Oh,
my
I didn't
life.
know that came out theatrical. I thought that was a TV
Oh yeah,
something.
no, it was
Oh boy.
real. Yeah,
Okay.
it was so bad. Uh, all right, what do you have at 8?
I have no. Oh yeah, eight. I'm sorry. Edward Scissorhands.
Me too. Absolutely.
I don't know. It's just I love Tim Burton, and I know
I
he
used to love Tim
uh,
Burton.
I still have hope. I have hope with this Beetlejuice too. Like my fingers are crossed, but this was an era where I just loved the look of Tim Burton, and I think Edward Scissorhands is so like unique and visually and storytelling, and uh, I know people feel whatever way they feel about Johnny Depp now, but he gave like a really great performance, and Winona Ryder and everybody in
Hmm.
that film, and it's so touching and heartbreaking. I remember crying, and I'm getting on my feels when I was first watching it. But I do
And it
think
does
in
have a
the
lot of Christmas.
it has a
It's all
lot of
set at
Christmas, and
Christmas.
I think at the end of the day, it kind of has a lovely message as well. But it's
Yeah, about
definitely,
prejudice and acceptance, and
yeah, totally. And I
yeah,
don't,
and of course
yeah.
the whole snow,
Oh, the
him making
snow and
snow,
oh
scene.
yes, and still doing that. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think you could make this movie today the same way and have it hit the same way
No.
as when this came out in the 90s. But I
Well,
will tell people to check out that car commercial that Timothy Chalamet played his son. Did you see that one with Winona Ryder?
oh yeah,
Yes, it
yeah.
was a Super
That
Bowl
would be good.
commercial years ago.
I've
That was
seen
hysterical. I'll be honest with you. I was pleasantly amused by that commercial.
that. Well, I think the problem with Tim Burton, he's one of those directors that has struggled to adapt to the digital age. I
Yeah.
think that him and Rob Reiner and Chris Columbus and they've had hits here and there, but for the most part, some of these 80 Robert Zemeckis certainly have struggled to kind of take their aesthetic and their style and their things that worked so well and sort of that
Yeah.
practical,
Have it translate
yeah,
well. Yeah.
and then adapt it into this digital age. And the thing I just wish with Tim Burton is I wish he would just get back to telling his own stories as opposed to telling other people's
Yes.
stories, because ever since Alice in Wonderland, it's just been like it's been rough for me at
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
him.
Like a hit or miss. But he doesn't have to do it digitally either. Like, you know, Oppenheimer and stuff. That was filmed
Yeah,
on film. He could, I don't know if he could get it because it's expensive now. And I remember going to see Oppenheimer, and right outside the theater were the long empty tubes of all the film reels. There was like three
yeah.
or four of them, to place it. And
Oh, do you get
that's
to
why
see
it
it on
looked so
70
good.
meter? 70 millimeter?
No, I didn't, because the theater didn't have it, but I did see the reels. Maybe I did. Now
Mm,
I can't remember. They
yeah.
had all the reels, which was amazing that they had to get somebody in to
Hmm.
play it.
I
But
saw it on 35 millimeter that here at so I didn't get to see it on the IMAX 70
I didn't see it. I
millimeter.
must have not seen it. No, I don't think it
Mm,
was IMAX. I think it was just like regular. But I remember how them lugging it out and putting it in, and getting all that stuff in it. And he doesn't have to do that. He could still, use film to film it, because he
hmm.
he is so visually creative with his miniatures and his puppets, and that is hard to translate on digital.
Yeah.
It's like westerns kind of look weird, in the digital format as well. They don't feel like lived in.
Hmm.
And
I agree. I mean, you think about his Dumbo, which I like more than most, but still Dumbo, Miss Peregrine's was unbearable. I hated that so much. Dark
I didn't
Shadows,
like it
Alice
either.
in
Dark
Wonderland,
Shadows, I was affronted. I almost ended my
it-
relationship with Tim Burton over that. Because
brutal.
I'm such
His
a Dark Shadows fan. I
Yeah.
have like the
Oh yeah.
casket, the whole entire soap opera on it on DVD. Like, I bought that, and I love, Dark
Yeah.
Shadows. And then I was just so insulted by what he did.
Yeah. I mean, I like his Sweeney Todd pretty good, but
I
it's
do
just
too. Maybe
like,
that was the last
yeah, it's just like go back telling
good
your own
one.
stories. Like I really like his Frankenweenie. I mean, it's like
Yes, it's
tell
adorable.
your own
Yeah.
stories. Your Planet of the Apes. Oh my gosh, it's so bad.
Mm.
And so yeah, I that would be my, not that Tim Burton would care what I think, but if he asked me for advice, I would say, please go back to telling your own stories like Edward
I'm very
Scissorhands.
hopeful. I'm very hopeful. I don't know why I'm hopeful, but I am very hopeful for Beetlejuice too.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
All
I
right.
shouldn't be, but
We both had Edward Scissorhands at 8. So what did you
yeah.
have at 7?
I had Carol,
Oh yeah. Darn, I forgot
which
Carol.
takes place a lot during Christmas. That's when Carol and now I can't remember her name, but I just think it's a heartbreaking tale. These
Yeah.
women fall in love, and they're struggling to be together. And the fact that she is then going through her divorce, and her husband is, sending an investigator to say she's unfit because she's a lesbian.
Kyle
And
Chandler
at
is
the
so good
so
in that
good in this
role.
movie.
Like he
And
takes
yeah, because he's not like a villain in it.
no.
You kind of understand what he's going through, and
Mhm.
it takes a good
Yeah.
actor and a good script. But like, I also love Kate Blanchett going, fine, you can have the full custody. I want to still see her, but just demanding that this is who I am. I'm not hiding from my daughter.
Mhm.
And the end is kind of hopeful, but I just think it's a sweet and devastating love story
Yeah.
set in the 50s. Everybody looks just beautiful, the costumes, the look,
Hmm.
everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, it really grips you.
Yeah. It's true. And that does have a lot of Christmas too in it.
Yeah.
It
I
really
mean, they
does.
meet. She's buying a Christmas present
Hmm.
at the store
Hmm.
when they meet.
Hmm. And that
And
long tracking shot when she's waiting
oh,
by the Christmas tree,
yes.
stand
Yeah.
the Christmas
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really
And Runa Mari
I forgot
too
about
is so good in that movie too, as her, because she's dating a man at this point, but she's really coming into her own and really feeling these feelings and like
that. Mhm.
this is who I really am. I love this woman. I'm finally like comfortable in my own skin, and then to just have it like kind of ruined by that private investigator and everything. It's just it's heartbreaking, but and the
Yeah,
ending is like however way you think it's gonna go, because it's kind of an open ending. I just choose for the best in my
yeah.
mind. I choose for the most positive
That's
ending.
a good choice. My number 7 is, or I have Gremlins.
Hmm.
And I did debate about this one because I'm like, it does have a like Christmas present on the front, on the poster. It is
I
like very,
mean,
is it hidden enough? I don't know, but I
no,
think some people just don't think of horror
true.
when they think of Christmas.
Yeah.
And so I still think it's
I
maybe not
mean,
something that people immediately think of, but it is
totally.
really
And that,
entertaining.
yeah, and that girl's dad died in the chimney playing
Yeah,
Santa, which is why
thanks.
she hates Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, which is
That monologue when she's telling him, and I'm busting out laughing, and which I shouldn't be because I was like, "Oh, he died. Why did he think that was a good idea?"
and of course, like the rules make absolutely no
Absolutely no
sense.
sense.
Like,
Who cares?
but but you think that they're simple enough that he could follow them, but no, you
Yeah.
got to get them wet after midnight.
Don't feed them.
Yeah, and they are real cute though.
Oh, even when they're monsters, they're cute.
Yeah,
Like,
they
oh,
are.
that would be me. Oh, and then it would bite
Yeah.
me and kill me in the middle. And so while I'm dying, I'm still going, oh, you know.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
really
good pick,
fun.
Rachel. It's a fun one.
And if you want to hear more of my thoughts on Gremlins, I did an episode. It was really fun a couple of years ago where I had my friend Sean Chandler on, and we called it at the time. It was called the anti-Hallmark episode, and so it was. We talked about horror and Christmas, and we did Gremlins and Anna and the Apocalypse on that episode, and so that was really fun. But yeah, I mean, Gremlins is like I feel like Gremlins is one of the most like 80s movies out ever.
Totally.
Like it's so
I
80s.
Yeah, and I live in fear that they're going to try to resurrect it. I mean, they've tried many times.
Yeah, I mean the sequel's pretty good. Gremlins 2.
Yeah, I think also at Christmas, isn't it?
I think
I
so. It's
think
been a
so. Now
bit.
it's been a while
Yeah.
since I've seen the sequel, but I always look because I don't think they can. I don't think it'll live up. Sometimes the '80s bubble, you can't reproduce that.
Yeah. I
When you
mean, and
make
I feel like
sequels to
what's the point
films.
when you already have Stranger Things? Like, I mean, we basically got that's
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
practically a remake in and of itself.
True.
Yeah. So what do you have at 6?
I have Rocky 4,
Oh,
where Rocky, ends,
he gets the
solves
robot.
peace, yeah, ends, crushes the Soviet Union by winning that fight against Drago, but it does take place on Christmas Day.
Well, and
And
doesn't
yeah,
he get the robot for
yes,
Christmas?
the kid gets the robot, and which I have not seen because I know Sylvester Stallone went back in to edit Rocky 4. I think he removed all the robot scenes.
Oh, he
So I
did.
have yet to see like that director's cut to see how it is. But I love the Rocky franchise, no matter how the original Rocky
Even
franchise. 'Cause
5, you like 5?
yes, I make apologies for 5, even though I know that, Sylvester Stallone wanted to kill Rocky in that one and they wouldn't let him. And,
Mm-hmm.
he did the best
Yeah.
he could to try to end that story. So, it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff with that. I'm not too much of a fan of the Creed movies.
Oh, really?
No, but I
Oh.
just love the original
Mm.
Rocky movies. And Rocky 4 is just
Yeah,
crazy, bonkers. It's the
it's
height of the '80s too,
yeah.
so it's delightful. Guys, he's
Yeah.
running in the Soviet Union in the snow, getting together to fight Drago,
Yeah.
because Drago killed
I
his
actually,
cousin's
I mean,
BFF, in the ring.
yeah, I think you could make an argument that it might be the strongest franchise ever. I mean,
Yes,
like Rocky 5
including the
isn't,
sequel series. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think I like all the Creed movies, especially the
yeah,
first. And then I mean, if Rocky 5 is the worst of the franchise, like
yeah.
that's not like, I mean, it's watchable.
Right. And I like Creed 2 better than the first Creed. I'm because it's got Drago and it calls back to Rocky 4. So yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, because even the sequel series is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Well, my number 6 is an interesting one because it's the cause of much debate in the Christmas movie watching world. I have Die Hard as number 6.
I begrudgingly put this on my list, Rachel, but I have it higher because I do not understand what the debate is over this movie. John McClane flies to Los Angeles to visit his kids on Christmas. Okay.
Yeah.
There's Christmas decorations.
He's everywhere. There for a Christmas party.
Yeah, he meets his wife at a Christmas party. Sure, terrorists take over, take it over. And Alan,
the argument
Rickman
that people will
swaying around over there, but like the soundtrack is even a holiday music.
Yeah.
It's
the argument people will say is that you could have it just as easily been a retirement party or that there's like, it's not like intrinsically Christmas, but I would say that's true of almost all Christmas movies. I mean, certainly something like Home Alone. I mean, I actually debated, so like, should I include Home Alone on this list? Because that could have been set at any time of the year.
At any time, could have been set in the summer.
I mean, certainly Miracle. I mean, certainly, It's a Wonderful Life. There's barely anything intrinsically Christmas about it. I mean, unless you've got Santa as a character, like in A Miracle on 34th Street, or you have or an elf, as a character, or something like that. Like, how many things are just like intrinsically Christmas to the plot? But I think that Die Hard, like you said, it's his whole motivation for being there. Yeah. So, and I mean, and it's certainly, if I was just ranking if I wasn't just ranking on my personal enjoyment, because the top 5 are like 5 of my like favorite movies. I just love them so much. This is one of the finest action movies ever made.
Oh, totally. Agreed. I got to see it. Now I'm blanking on his name, but it was out in theaters around Christmas, and I took my nephew to go see it. And this was his first Die Hard anything. I was like, watch Die Hard. You skip 2, you watch Die Hard 3, and that's it. You skip 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And so we watched it, and because we went on a Wednesday night, so we were the only ones in the theater. And so we were just having a ball, howling. And it was so wonderful to see on the big screen because I had never seen it in the theater. But my nephew said one of the bad guys, the henchman that had glasses on and he was blonde, he's like, hey, doesn't he look like Jeffrey Dahmer? And it almost ruined the movie for me for a minute. I was like, what? What do you know about Jeffrey Dahmer?
He's a bad guy, at least.
But it caught me so. I was like, what do you know about Jeffrey Dahmer? He's like, I've seen some YouTube videos on him. I was like, what? My nephew's 14 now. So like,
that's really
it was hysterical. I was like, what? But, my nephew and I are very much the same person. So anytime there's explosions and we can go to the theater, and you should have seen how we were acting when we watched Plane. We were clapping, high-fiving each other.
But I mean, Alan Rickman, maybe he is in the argument for one of the most iconic villains ever.
The most iconic, he's like the sex appeal that he is just walking in a room to, that Alan Rickman had, and that voice. I was like, I love you despite you being horrible, though. You can't help it.
Yeah.
But he is great. I even love his death scene,
Yeah. So good.
So good.
So that's my number 6. Let's see. What was your number 6?
Mine was Rocky 4.
Oh, right. Okay, so what is your number 5?
Batman Returns. Because it does take place
in Tim Burton.
Speaking of Tim Burton, yes, here's another go. I mean, right off, it's Christmas at the beginning when Pee Wee Herman, not Pee Wee Herman, but in the movie, but he throws his deformed son, the penguin, out. Danny DeVito is so good in this movie, but also so disgusting looking as the penguin. He's so disgusting, and of course, Christopher Walken, the mayor, not the mayor, but he's one of the bad guys. And it is the Christmas parade. It's all set during the Christmas. And I didn't even know that going in, even though I watched trailers. I didn't put two and two that together because I think this guy, I must have been 12 because I was a huge Batman fan, the 60 show, and I watched the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton. And so I had to go. And my sister took me to see this in the theater, and I was so excited. And I was like, oh, yes, it's a Christmas movie too. And I think a lot of people don't realize that because I don't think it was released around the holiday time. But I think it's just fun. It's a Batman movie. It's definitely like what comic book movies used to look like in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Burton, this one I think improves over the first Batman movie that Tim
Yeah,
Burton
I'd
did
agree
with
with
Michael
that.
Keaton.
Yeah, and
And
Michelle Pfeiffer's so good.
oh, she's so
Catwoman.
good. Christopher Walken, he's always good. But like
Yeah.
Danny DeVito, Chef's Kiss, he's just like so disgusting in the movie. I was like, oh, gross, you know?
It really is.
They really made the penguin like gross, you know?
Yeah,
Which
it's
I
true.
really appreciated.
I do get a little, the reason why it's not on my list is
Mhm.
that the whole thing with the penguin running for governor
Oh,
or mayor
yes.
or whatever,
Well,
like that plot line gets kind of,
yeah,
I get a
like
little,
people
start to
with
get a
a
little bored, but it's a really solid movie, solid
yeah.
Batman movie, and yeah, it does have those Christmas
Yes, and I
themes.
love it because it's both modern and but it looks like it takes place in the 40s.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
that.
so I
Yeah,
just I
yeah.
love that.
Oh, it has great style.
Great style.
So,
And the
well,
best Batmobile to me. You know, he had the best Batmobile. So.
yeah. I'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Elise Murray and her exciting book, Society Girl. Set in the mysterious world of Oxford University's secret societies, Society Girl follows Sam, a duke's estranged daughter, as she attempts to join the most famous club of them all, the Animos Society. Her final initiation challenge is simple: find a man, convince him she's in love with him, and then break his heart in humiliating fashion. Hardened by her father's rejections, believing that the Animos Society is her key to his love and acceptance, Sam throws herself into making Daniel Best, her father's chauffeur and local musician, fall for her. But she never counted on falling in love with him right back. Fans of Colleen Hoover, Anna Hong, and Mia Sheridan will love Society Girl, a sweeping romance from bestselling novelist and screenwriter Elise Murray. Free for Kindle Unlimited users for a limited time. Go to elisemurray.com/novels/Society Girl for more information. Or you can use the affiliate link below. Well, my number 5 is a movie called The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And this was a movie that really spoke to me. I felt like, there's lots of movies I feel nostalgia for because they were, movies I loved growing up. But this was one of the first ones that I really felt like captured my teenage years. Like, it just felt like this could have been my friends. I was kind of a drama geek, and I felt like this really captured as close to, obviously not the trauma included, but I don't know, I just felt like it really captured my teenage vibes and
I
experience.
don't think I've ever seen this one.
Oh, you've never seen
No, I don't believe I have. So I didn't know it
we should
was
do an
like
episode on
secret
it.
Christmas. I've
I
never
mean,
seen
maybe
this one. I've heard good things though.
maybe I'm overhyping it, but it just really, just everything from the music to I one of the things I loved about it is that you watch all, especially in these 80s teen movies or something
Yeah.
like Can't Hardly Wait or whatever, and they have these massive parties that just get out of control, and I never experienced anything like that.
I never knew one person who had a massive party.
No,
I
most
didn't
of
think that was
the
a real thing. I still don't think that's a real thing.
I've never heard of anything like that. And most of the parties that I ever attended, at least, were just like it was just like people hanging around, like it wasn't that exciting.
No, like even like birthday parties or whatever that we went to, like, and there was like your class, your whole class shows up or whatever. I mean, we just had pizza and watched a movie.
Yeah, that's the way.
I
and that's
never
the way
even
it
in high
is.
school, like never had any of that kind of. I've never seen a rager or heard of anybody that I knew
Yeah.
that had a rager. As adults, another story.
Yeah, and
know?
and that's the way it is in this movie. They're just like hanging out in basement, like with red solo cups and just talking. And
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really just loved this movie. The whole idea of we accept the love we think we deserve, and that's one of the iconic lines in it. And there's a really important scene, and not to spoil it for you, but where they have Christmas and they do Secret Santa, and the Ezra Miller character gives the lead his dream is to be a writer, and so Ezra Miller character gives him a suit. He's like, all great writers have a suit.
Oh,
and
that's
in
so
this in the Secret
that is
Santa
sweet.
is very sweet, and just their friendship, and then we have a scene where he gets his first kiss with Emma Watson character, and says that I want your first kiss to be from somebody who truly loves you, and
Oh.
it's I just love the movie. It's so good, and it's really interesting because the director Stephen Chbosky, he actually adapted his own novel,
Oh,
and
see, that's
so
nice. Yeah.
just
I feel
interesting
like when that happens, you get,
because it
you
not
know,
only
yeah.
a lot of times you have it with they'll do the screenplay, but in this case, and he had directed the movie, so
Yeah, I feel like that gives it an extra
Mhm.
authenticity to the novel.
Yeah. When this movie came out, I loved it so much that I saw it 3 times in 1 week.
Oh, well, there's some movies that grip you. Like, it
Yeah.
sounds interesting. I think I always think that, ooh, what is her name?
Emma Watson.
No, I thought it was the girl who did Twilight. What is her
Oh,
name?
Anna Kendrick.
No, Kristen.
Oh, Kristen Stewart.
That's it, Kristen Stewart. I was gonna say Kristen Dunst, but I was like, that's not Kristen Dunst. Yeah, I thought it was Kristen Stewart that was in that movie. I might be confusing
No.
films.
Yeah, it's got Emma Watson with an American accent. Mae Whitman is in it.
Okay. Oh, I'm totally thinking of.
Great.
I don't know why I thought Kristen Dunst was in it.
Yeah.
Not Kristen
Paul
Dunst,
Rudd.
Kristen Stewart. Kristen
Paul
Dunst
Rudd plays his teacher. He's the English teacher, and I just love the movie. It's
Yeah, it sounds
so
charming. I've got to check it out.
I mean,
I've
it
got
can
some
be
blind
quite
spots.
emotional. It's but
Oh, even better.
but yeah. So yeah, we've never actually done an episode on it, and
No, it sounds
so
it
if you watch
sounds
it, let me
sweet.
know.
Yeah, I will.
So all right, what do you have it for?
This is where I have Little Women, but I chose the 94 version because out of the theatrical releases, it is my favorite.
Yeah, it's my favorite too.
I love Winona Ryder. She's my favorite Jo. She's not necessarily Jo from the books, but she's my favorite. Actually, the 1950s Little Women is not particularly that good, but I feel like June Allison is the most Jo from the novels with the way she says Christopher Columbus, like in a sort of way, like she's swearing, and her attitude in the beginning. I feel like she captures Jo the most from the novels. But I do love Winona Ryder's interpretation here. I love that they aged up Amy, and that they kept like all the girls the ages that they're supposed to be. Because a lot of times they switch up Beth and Amy. They switch them up on who's younger and stuff. And I loved Gabriel Bryant. I thought he was the perfect Frederick. And I just couldn't like when he first graced the scene, I was like, ooh, like this is everything because he is supposed to be older and wiser. And you could just see why Jo is attracted to him, I thought he was too young in the Greta Gerwig version. But I get it why they made him that way, because people would be like, he's too old for her now, but I don't know, this is my favorite version of Little Women, and I watch it almost every year. It never gets old to me.
Yeah, it's great. I love it too. I mean, I do think that's probably the strongest is the fact that it has the two Amy's. I think that really works. And I wish
because it does work
that.
because Amy's so bratty, as she's like, you understand why she's bratty. But also there's a maturity to older Amy. And I think it was the first time and probably the only time they've ever done that with Amy in a Little Women adaptation that I remember.
I still don't know if I really bought the Amy Laurie in that one.
No, I mean, yeah. But, it's kind of hard to buy Amy Laurie in the books as well. Well, it was for me anyhow, even though we do see them together and have conversations like in the current version. What do you think of with Mia Hawke? What did you see that Little Women version it gave on PBS?
I didn't like that version because
it's kind of dour.
Well, no, I just felt like they tried to turn every single character into Jo.
Yes, that
They were
was, and
all headstrong, and they were
yeah, all
all
headstrong. And
opinionated,
it
and
is
they were
also a little
all
dour too.
well, yeah. And I just like it. It's interesting when you have the four different experiences and the four
Yeah,
different personalities, and so when you make them all feminists and all,
yeah.
then it makes them less
It's
interesting.
also it's also incredibly interesting too that the British love to make miniseries out of Little Women, which is a very American story,
Yeah, that's true.
you
That's a
know.
good
So
point.
it like it just that's how much it like people can relate to it with the setting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Little Women's a great movie, and a lot of it takes place at Christmas throughout various years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so touching and
Christmas,
heartwarming.
Christmas
So,
won't be Christmas without any presents.
yep.
Well, my number four is a, I think, underrated little film. I never heard of it until I was doing the Criterion project with Conrado. It's a Frank Capra underappreciated little gem called Meet John Doe. Have you ever
I
heard of
don't think
this movie?
no, I haven't seen this one. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, so it stars Gary Cooper. He's hired to play this character because what happens is that Barbara Stanwyck, she's this reporter, and she's trying to save her job. So she writes this fake letter from John Doe about the problems in American society, and people are starving, and this is May 1941, and that he's going to commit suicide in this letter, and it becomes this huge thing, and so then they decide to hire him to play John Doe and pretend that he's this person who had this fake letter. And it all culminates on Christmas Day. And he gives this speech. He says, to most of you, your neighbor is a stranger, a guy with a barking dog and a high fence around him. Now you can't be a stranger to any guy that's on your own team. So tear down the fence that separates you. Tear down the fence, and you'll tear down a lot of hates and prejudices. Tear down all the fences in the country, and you'll really have teamwork. I know a lot of you are saying to yourselves, he's asking for a miracle to happen. He's expecting people to change all of a sudden. Well, you're wrong. It's no miracle. It's no miracle because I see it happen once every year. And so do you at Christmas time. There's something swell about the spirit of Christmas to see what it does to people, all kinds of people. Now, why can't that same warm Christmas spirit last the whole year round? Gosh, if it ever did, if each and every John Doe would make that spirit last 365 days out of the year, we'd develop such a strength and we'd create such a tidal wave of goodwill that no human force could stand against it. Yes, sir, my friends, the meek can only inherit the earth when the John Doe start loving their neighbors. You better start right now. Don't wait till the game is called on account of darkness. Wake up, John Doe. You're the hope of the world.
Oh, that's good. Definitely a Frank Capra movie. I've got to see this movie now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really warm-hearted, moving, lovely. And when I did the Criterion Project episode about it, I basically, because we pitched a remake at the end of each episode of that show, and my pitch was they should make this into a Hallmark movie because I think it has all
work. I mean, they would definitely not have it written by suicide. It'd be something else, like
that's probably true,
like saving somebody or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But it's a great movie, one that I had never seen until we did that episode.
I've heard of it, and I've got to watch this movie.
Yeah,
because it does sound lovely.
It's really good, really good. So check it out. What do you have at number 3?
I have the very first, the Thin Man movie.
Oh yeah,
basically the Thin Man. This takes place at Christmas. Nick and Nora are, spending the holidays, spending Christmas in New York, when a friend of theirs goes missing, and they, investigate the disappearance. And of course, there's murder involved. And the Thin Man series is great. The first movie takes place at Christmas. The second is a New Year's movie. But just each installment, even as the years progress, and we get into the 40s, because these are all, before the Hays Code, so like the early Thin Man movies. So, it's witty. There's innuendo left and right. And William Powell and Marina Loy made a dozen or more movies together, but they are the greatest on-screen pairing I think that has ever been on because they are always so good together no matter what movie they're in, and they play off each other so well. And like if you're just looking for a fun, witty, classic like detective tale, the Thin Man series is that, but especially the first movie, which is just so it's so fun. It's so
Mhm.
fun, and it's
Yeah,
like, oh, I thought you
that
were
is
dead, and
really
you know, and
good.
all this other stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
because like Nick, man, he's a former con man who married rich, and now he runs his wife's father's company. I mean, he's made it big, but he has a genuine love for Nora, and there's their little dog, and
Mhm.
eventually they have a baby, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I watched this all five films. They're great,
Mhm. And funny.
and funny, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
surprisingly hold up. They don't feel old when you watch it. Like certain movies tend to feel old. They tend to feel like like the year that they were made. Like there's a lot of movies that came out in the '90s that feel like, well, that's a '90s movie. But
Mhm.
I think The
Mhm.
Thin Man, just especially the first movie, it fits anywhere. It's
Yeah.
ages that way.
True. Well, my number three is where I have While You Were Sleeping.
Hmm.
And it's a movie that I absolutely love. And I think that in many ways it captures the spirit of Christmas with just the family aspect to it and her loneliness and her being sort of enveloped
Yeah.
in this family and that being so important to her and just the iconic scene when they're all opening their presents and she's just kind of looking around and just watching the joy and watching and she just kind of holds the present and she just can't I
Yeah.
don't just can't believe it because it's like what so many of us take for granted is something she just hasn't had in her life. And when she
Yeah.
says you have no idea what it's like to be totally alone.
I know. It's like
And
very sweet. And I sometimes don't think about this as a secret holiday film, but in
hmm
many ways it was, because now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember if the marketing really played in on
hmm
that.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
No, I don't think so, but yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean and it's over like a couple months, so
Oh yeah.
it's a little
You
different,
got
but
Christmas and New Year's.
uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah, it could definitely I think I did have it on our New Year's list.
I believe so. I think we
Because
both
that's
did.
pretty iconic. And
Yeah.
I think it's I know some people might scoff at this, but I really do think it's a perfect film. There's as far as like is there anything I would change? Almost nothing. Maybe
I
make
agree.
Ashley a little like the ex-girlfriend. Maybe make her a little less over the top, but
Yeah.
other than that,
Yeah, I agree. I think
it's
it hits. It's like it's just perfect the way it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so they have such good chemistry. I love the whole family, the whole the whole conversation around dinner when they're all having different conversations at the same time is so funny and so well written
Totally.
and so I love her
Yeah.
boss. It's so funny.
When they're like, he's got a cat, we got to feed that cat. And she's like, what?
They have doctors for this kind of thing. So, what do you have at two?
This is where I have Die Hard. And
Yeah,
I
it's
begrudgingly put it on the
classic.
list because I did not want to. But I was like, yeah, people have it's in the debate. But Turner
Mhm.
Classic Movies put out a couple of years ago, and I think they've updated it since, the best Christmas movies from like each decade.
Uh-huh.
And Die Hard is in there. So it officially counts, people.
Yeah, yeah. It
But
really
yeah.
does. Yeah. And like I said, one of the finest action films ever made because it
Totally.
all feels
Totally.
so real and so
And
visceral
here's
and
another thing that they don't really do anymore. You feel like when John McClane gets hurt and he has the glass in his feet and he's got to take the glass out
yeah,
of his foot, you feel that he
you
is in
really do.
pain, that
Well,
that
he's
he's
just an every
injured.
guy.
Yeah, because
That's
he's
the
a
thing.
normal person. He's not
Yeah.
like roided out or had like
No.
abs painted onto him or CGI muscles,
Yeah.
and he's not like nothing can hurt me. I'm invincible even when I get shot like 500 times,
Yeah, he's just an ordinary guy.
just an ordinary guy, Not that there isn't something great to see with a dude take a whole bunch of hits and just survive,
Yeah.
like, especially when he's good looking, like I'm thinking of a Turkish
Yeah.
soap that I love to watch where he has been hit in the same spot with an arrow through 5 seasons. And I was like, that would have been festering. But because he's invincible and good looking, I was like, please hit him some more.
Yeah,
It's always sexy to see him fight back. And there is, not to, say Bruce Willis wasn't good looking in this movie or like, and he had some muscles in there, but he is like every day. And you don't get that in action movies anymore. You don't like feel like they're hurt and they still got to go on. And this is a movie that really does that, and it gets less so in the sequels. For
even the original Indiana Jones movies, like he gets beaten.
He gets
punched in the face,
and he feels it.
Yeah. And where this like Crystal Skull in this most recent one, like I mean, it becomes so ridiculous.
Like he would feel that at that age.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my number 2 is Meet Me in St. Louis.
Yes. This movie encapsulates all holidays.
Yeah, really, because it's a whole year with this family. Totally. But since they have the iconic scene with "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" and Tootie destroying the
makes me cry every time.
Sculptures.
Just how beautifully sung that is by Judy Garland too. Every time I hear her version of that song, I cry. It's just so like it tugs so you,
It's so beautiful, so and who can't relate? Not wanting to move, and
I know,
to the normal struggles of a normal everyday family, at this time, and such beautiful songs, and throughout the whole thing, The Boy Next Door, the trolley song, it's
which I used to reenact as a kid. So picture that. I don't know, people have it. Just picture a chubby little girl reenacting that. In her living room to no one. Because nobody cared. But
so sweet.
It made me happy. I didn't care. So singing that I was doing that well into my 20s, which was probably, like, what are you doing? It's the trolley song. Clank, clank. And people would be like, what? And I was like, get educated. I once yelled at somebody, get educated. Because they're like, what's your favorite? They were talking about musicals. It was very current. I can't remember which. And I was like, oh, the trolley song. And people were like, what? I was like, yeah, Judy Garland. And they rolled their eyes like, oh, it's so old. And I yelled out, get educated.
It's true. Never were true words spoken. All right. Well, what's your number 1?
My number 1, I had to put a Shane Black movie in it. It's Iron Man 3. No, I'm joking. That movie sucks. It's Lethal Weapon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about this movie. I mean, it does take place at Christmas. They have a big gunfight in a Christmas tree shop. In the middle out there.
It's definitely Christmas.
Yeah, they're chasing drug lords, and it's so 80s, and it's like one of the best buddy cop movies out there. And I don't know, I love it so much. I was late to the game on the Lethal Weapon movies, and when I finally came on, I became hardcore. And there's just something just so, I don't know, I can't wait to show this to my nephew. I can't right now. He tells me he can close his eyes at the beginning of the film because there's brief nudity in it, and he is not old enough to see nudity yet. We're still monitoring that. Couple of curse words here and there, And he's like, nah, TT, I'll just close my eyes. It'll be all right. Tell me. Yeah, because he wanted to see Oppenheimer, and he asked me if he could because he's a big Robert Downey Jr. fan. And I was like, ooh, I don't know. And he goes, well, if you could tell me when to leave the room and then I can come back. And I was like, okay, I'll tell you to do that.
I mean, it's true because it's so compartmentalized into just a couple scenes.
Yeah, into a couple scenes. And I was like, okay, because he's actually pretty good at that. He will leave the room and come back. He doesn't complain. He knows what he can. Because I always tell him, I was like, come on, I did it all the time. I know you're doing stuff behind my back, like when we're not looking. I know you cuss at school. Like, these are what kids do, but he's still very respectful in front of all of us, and he knows what he can see and what he's not. Yeah,
I mean, that's what's called like parenting, I'm
not trying to get on a tangent, but it is. I was like, because I love Commando so much with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and there is that one scene in the motel room where the lady flips over. And I was like, how am I going to show him this? And he's like, I'll close my eyes, and he's so sweet because he
Yeah.
loves these old action movies, and
Well,
he knows, yeah.
what's so funny is in the Great Mouse Detective, how there's that burlesque scene, that bizarre,
Yes.
like, um, and I was watching it for the first time I did my canon watch, and because we loved anything Sherlock Holmesy related. My dad loves that, and so I'd seen it many, many times. But I was like, what is this scene? I don't even remember this scene.
Oh, they cut
when
it
I was
out.
watching by myself. And I called my mom and I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh, we always skipped over that scene.
Hey, man, you gotta do what you do. I'll be honest with you, the first time I ever saw nudity, it was boobs on TV. I almost fainted because I thought, I did not know this, but I was sitting in the living room alone, and sometimes when you had cable back in the day, when you didn't have the movie channels, they would give you like 3 days a week, maybe 2-3 days where it would be free, where you could watch a movie, see if you got that channel. And I guess it was on HBO or something like that. And I was just watching something, and I wasn't really paying attention. I didn't know what channel it was. And these boobs flashed in, and I was like, the fright of my life. Like, did anybody see that? Was I here alone? Am I going to get in trouble? Because I was so deathly afraid of getting in trouble by my parents.
I can tell you the first. I
don't remember what movie it was,
but I think it might have been Schindler's List, because I had special permission from my parents to watch it, and there's nudity in that. But that's a very strange.
I was
to be your first.
That is a strange. I can't remember what movie it was. It was probably it was a ridiculous low budget, but I freaked out, and I was like, I think I was maybe 12, 13 when that happened. And I was like, I shouldn't be freaked out by that, but I was so afraid of getting caught.
It's really interesting because since I've become a film critic, like I just was kind of like, well, I just gotta be open to anything, and I gotta be, and it's what I guess what's interesting is that like a lot of that kind of stuff has just sort of lost its power, like it's just like, oh, that's just a body. It's no big, like,
it's true.
I don't know. It used to be like so shocking and such like an experience.
Yeah, because when you're never allowed,
and now I'm just like,
because you're not allowed to watch those things. And then when you do, when nobody's around, you're like, I got away with something, right? Yeah. And then when you are allowed, I was a grown adult. Like, I was 27 years old when my mom died. But even up until 27, I could not watch any movie where there was nudity or anything else graphic going on, or semi-graphic, or not even graphic at all, because it was the most uncomfortable situation to have. And we're grown adults. My sister and I would be sweating. We'd be like, oh no, like something popped up we didn't think about. Like, we watched Love Actually together.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole, like,
surprisingly, it earns every bit of that.
Yes, rating. That porn subplot where they're the stand-ins, and we were sweating. We didn't look at my mother one time. And every time those scenes came up, we heard my mother go, like, we're gonna get it. And she didn't say anything because we had somebody watching it with us.
Yeah,
and she's laughing at all that.
Once it becomes like your job, it just sort of loses some of its power. Like,
okay, Rachel, but here's the question, totally off topic too, on what we're talking about. But do you feel that it's because there's a debate now where more people are like, it's not necessary to make a movie. Now, I watch a lot of movies, and a lot of the movies I watch don't have nudity in it. And I watch a lot of foreign films, and sometimes they do, and a lot of times they don't because they're not allowed to, depending which country you're watching it from.
When do you ever see A Portrait of a Lady on Fire?
Not yet.
It's a very good movie, but it does have quite a bit of nudity.
But do you feel like as because I feel now that I'm older, I'm like, I can't.
Well, it was just funny because I was talking to Michelle about it, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't even." I'm like, "Oh, you Europeans."
No, because they do feel it's nothing to Europeans, it really is. And it is quite different to them. I think we as Americans are more hung up, but like, it's so funny because there were movies where like, oh, this needs more sexiness to it, or more this or whatever, like, when you're watching certain movies. And now I'm older, I'm like, guy, put on your shirt. I do this when I watch TV shows. I'm like,
I
guy,
don't
put
know,
on your
like
shirt.
it depends. Like I personally could have used a little bit more steaminess at Challengers.
I didn't see
Because
that one
the
yet.
whole movie was billed and sold
Oh,
on
I
its
thought it was. I thought it was like kind of like
no,
one of them sexy.
no.
Oh,
It's really not. I mean,
well, that
most of
was
the time they
missold
are
though.
fully clothed that most of that entire movie. And I mean it can be very erotic and a lot
Yeah.
of it is in the subtext. And I did recommend the film, but it was just sold as being like, oh, this thing is going to be like escapism in that regard, and it
Yeah.
really wasn't. But it was more for the like the competition, kind of side. It was like a sports movie more than it was like
It's
an
like when they
erotic
should.
thriller of any kind.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think here's my opinion on that whole debate is that sex is part of life.
Right.
And I think that in today, it's like storytelling has always been a way that we process the world around us and the way that we process our life. And it's just the fact that today movie making and movies is the primary form of storytelling.
Right.
And because people just aren't reading novels the way they used to. People just aren't. I mean, maybe you could make an argument for television and long, kind of long form content in that way, but it's just the fact that movies are the primary form of storytelling of over the last 30 years, certainly, maybe even 50 years.
Agree, yeah.
And so if I think that we need to have one of the most important parts of life and humanity as part of our stories and talking about it. And that doesn't mean that it can't be gratuitous and exploitative. Yeah. It can be done poorly, but I think it can also be done very well. And it can be escapism, and it can be fun, and it can be silly, and all of those things I think are an important part of life. And sex is sometimes funny and silly, and that's part
I do
of life.
think it's yeah, I agree completely, but I think it's kind of harder to do now because somebody's always like, this is beyond weird to me when say I didn't give my consent to see that. You gave your consent when you paid for the ticket or you rented it or you watched it.
And it's so easy to find.
It's so easy to find
information. There's so many resources, whether it's IMDb, parental guides. Like if you look for any movie on IMDb, you can go into the parental guide and you can see detailed listing of every single thing, like stuff that nobody finds offensive are on there, for free, that anybody can have. So the excuse that I didn't know what I was setting into, you got the rating, first of all. Second of all, you have all these other resources at your disposal. You have reviews, you have critics.
You don't have to watch it if you don't want to.
You don't have to watch it.
Fine. It's completely fine.
Yeah.
But I do feel like there's so much pressure, and people complain and they talk about age difference and not all age difference needs to be like compiled. Like the weirdest thing too is when they put real life current stuff in like to fantasy, and I'm like, and none of that is real. It doesn't matter, unless you're specifically making that point in what you're telling. Don't add on to it with perceived notions. It's okay.
Oh, well, like sometimes it can be fun, like because My Lady Jane, that they add this whole fantasy element to it and make it like there's this
that's different. Yeah, that's all fantasy, alternate history, alternate universe. That's completely okay for you to go off script. It's like Bridgerton,
but which is what
alternate universe watching as well. Yeah,
you
know what you're watching. You know what you're in. You're totally okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just find the discourse kind of weird. I myself sometimes, I guess depending what it is, sometimes I'm like, guy, put on a shirt. I'm tired of seeing you shirtless.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, certainly it can be done very bad. Like anything in film, it can be gratuitous and over the top and too much. And
like when they shouldn't, they do. And when they should, they don't. It's weird. It's really weird.
The whole conversation is very annoying.
Yeah, it's very. We got way off topic. I'm sorry.
No, not our conversation, but just the
I know in general,
outrageaholics who throw their hands up the air the slightest.
Everything
is your
so
choices.
hard.
Let other people make their choices.
I know.
Move on with your life. Like what everybody else shouldn't be dictated by your moral guidelines,
Exactly.
and but I do have the problem sometimes, I admit it, that because it is my job and I see so many movies, and I do sometimes get a little desensitized, especially to language. And I have had a few times where people are like, oh, that was such an offensive, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice anything. Because and so, whereas I'm sure back in my like most strict Orthodox phases, I would have been horrified, like them.
I've
So I
actually
feel
never,
bad when that happens, but
language has never, like, I've never been like offended by language. Very few things sort of offend me, like just sometimes, rarely, I'm like, oh, because I take it with like, this
yeah.
ain't real, this whatever, unless it's some kind of weird messaging, like, in the film itself. But I curse like a sailor, so I can't complain. I mean, I know when to like reel it in, and be appropriate.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
My number one.
Oh my gosh, I know we went straight up. I apologize. I am.
What did you have your number one?
I was Lethal Weapon, and then we started talking about boobs, and
which
it's my fault, people.
Lethal Weapon, I must admit, I just didn't love. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's like
those. A lot of those movies from the 80s that I watched as blind spots. So years later. I don't know.
Do you think it's too much of a guys movie?
Maybe.
I think it does qualify in that. It does qualify as like a dude movie, like a bro movie or whatever. Yeah.
I really didn't like Beverly Hills Cop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people were asking, are you going to watch this new one? And I'm like, why would I watch the new one? I hated the original. Like, it's not made for me in any way.
Yeah. I can give or take those movies. I don't have that, affinity for them, but
I just did not think it was funny, like, at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that, I talked about the chemistry of Lethal Weapon, the Christmas themes. I said, my problem with Lethal Weapon is I did not love the script or the action.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
The machismo in his writing is a turnoff, and there's a cynicism with how his characters treat each other, which I do not connect with or find appealing. Other people seem to think it's hilarious, but
all that stuff I loved, Rachel, in that movie.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think because I also view it as an 80s movie and feel the way that, for the time it very much is like awesome for the time it was in. But I get all your complaints about, there's some movies, that you just can't relate to.
Yeah, and I said you have to put on your 80s cap when watching Lethal Weapon.
Oh, totally. Yes. Yeah.
We have such a different attitude about police brutality and violence in 2020. And it says Riggs spends most of the movie trying to convince Murtaugh that his method of killing the bad guys is the way to go. Today, we'd certainly take a step back from that line of thinking, which is, I think, interesting and true.
True.
Yeah. So, it's obviously a classic. People love it. They made like 5 of the movies. So what are you going to do?
I know. It's like also the police brutality is too, because like, we're a bit more sensitive to that. But also when I like watch these movies, I sometimes don't care because I don't think of it as reality. Like, I don't think it's real.
Yeah.
But
and I think that's what I meant when you have to put on your 80s cap.
Yeah, you have to put on like that cap, like none of this is real. It ain't happening. I don't agree with this in real life, obviously. Yeah. But for watching a movie, it's, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, my number one, I just have all of the perfumery.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes.
I have. You've
right.
got
They're
mail,
not necessarily. Yeah.
shop around
right.
the corner, and She Loves Me. on there. They all have Christmas featured. I think Shop Around the Car
Right.
is probably the most Christmas of any of them.
Absolutely. I
Outright.
think they consider that a bona fide Christmas
Yeah,
movie.
I think so. The Starter is a hidden Christmas movie for that one. You've
Yeah.
Got Mail, just the scene where she's decorating the tree and talking about Joni Mitchell and missing her mother, and it's such a beautiful, authentic scene. Of course, you'll have the Thanksgiving scene where she's buying groceries, no card. Zip 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 zip. This is a credit card machine. The credit card.
You
So
know.
good.
But
And I think it's a New Year's party with the caviar. Caviar is a Dane, but caviar is a garnish.
yes.
Caviar.
I feel bad for the good old summertime. That one always gets left behind.
Yeah.
It has a really sexy ending though.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, that's not the
I
best
can't
part of that
remember if that
movie.
one has Christmas or not, but
It does have Christmas in it.
in She Loves Me, the Broadway musical, and there's a pro
Yeah.
shot that's amazing. There's a whole song about Christmas.
Yeah.
5 days to Christmas, 6 days to Christmas. And there's the whole ending is on Christmas, and they're gonna meet for the first time in at the Christmas party, and she's gonna bring him one of those boxes that he hates, the music boxes.
They can't tell.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really wonderful, and I love You've Got Mail, and I love
Rachel, if you could remake this movie today, who would you cast in it?
Who would I cast? Like in the Hallmark world or just in general?
In general. Oh, in the Hallmark world is even harder. Because I think this would be a
'Cause I
great
feel like
remake for Hallmark.
Yeah, I
think
mean, they've tried a number of
Yeah.
times basically to do it, but if they were to do like a true sort of perfumery,
Yeah.
because they certainly had Hanukkah on Rye. That was
They would
very
totally
close.
put Lacey Chabert in it.
Yeah.
You know
I
what?
mean,
Maybe
certainly.
Rihanna Fish. I really like
Oh,
Rihanna
yeah,
Fish.
she could be good. She could be good. In the non-Hallmark world,
It's tough.
There's
There's so many young actresses I just don't click with.
I don't know. I could see like Florence Pugh. I could see her.
I guess.
Like
She
the
reads
part of the
cold
problem
to
is
me.
I actually don't know that sort of
Yeah.
like I know the actresses around my age real well, and I know
Yeah,
but, like,
right,
the
yeah.
younger, like I don't know
But they don't
aside from
necessarily have
Zendaya
to
and
be.
Florence Pugh.
Yeah, they don't have to be. They'd probably put Zendaya in it, which wouldn't be that bad if they did it
Yeah,
like a
she's
modern day-ish.
You know who would be really cute is if you had Mike Feist. He's in Challengers and in West Side Story, but I think
Yes.
that he would be like a really fun sort of Tom Hanks, Jimmy Stewart type of
Yeah.
actor. You know what would be really cute is if they got Nicola Coughlan, who's just in
Oh,
done
yes.
Bridgerton. I would
Yeah.
love to see her do like an outright bona fide rom-com.
Oh, right. I know, and it would be
And-
even better with like the letters and then
Yeah.
like, oops, I found out. Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be really good. And
But I
so
think
yeah, if you had
also-
Nicola Coughlan and Mike Feist, I mean,
But
I
you
would
could
be all
make
over
that story for somebody in their 40s too. Either they've
Mhm.
never been in a serious relationship or they're starting up again. You could wiggle it around to make the the actors a little bit older or the characters a little bit
But
older.
the question is though, is like, how do you do? So we've already done email.
You make
know,
it
like-
period. You do it period. You don't do
Oh,
it modern. You stick to period because I think
Mm.
it works better that way. There's too many modern. It's too easy to find out who this person is today.
yeah, because
If you really try hard enough, yeah. So it's
Because I
kind of
don't know.
hard.
Yeah, because I was just thinking since they've already, it'll just feel like, oh, it's a copy of You've Got Mail.
You're right.
So like, if there was,
because people will hunt down that IP address.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of ways to do it. If they really, really want to find someone, you can. So I would set it in the 30s, maybe set it a bit
30s.
in the 30s. Well, the original's in the 30s, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'd set it there in the 30s, maybe 40s,
Mm.
and
And
go
that
from
would be
there.
good for Mike Feist and Nicole Coughlan as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because the original was released in 1940.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah,
Mhm.
I would totally do that and make it
Oh
period.
man, that would be
Ooh, the
so
excitement.
good. That
I'd
would
even
be
make
up
it-
for Oscars, man. If they made a perfumery movie starring Mike Feist and Nicola Coughlan. I'm telling you, that would win Oscars. It would be so good.
I mean, it would be, yeah.
It really would. Like, and you could have
they can even make the musical version of it as well.
Oh,
because they haven't made,
new
and
version of She Loves Me. Both of them could sing, Nicola Coughlan and Mike Feist.
Exactly. And I would still keep it period. No, don't modernize it. Keep it period. You know, for the idea of the pen pal.
Them doing a She Loves Me. Oh,
you know they put Timothée Chalamet in the movie though. You know they would because he's such an it thing. Just like
I'm
when
fine
I said
with Timothy. I don't mind him.
Remember when I told my sister I was like I was casting the Muppets Three Musketeers and I said I put Timothée Chalamet in there and my sister's like I can never unsee that now.
But I really think that Mike Feist.
By the way, I did see him once while they were filming that movie down here, closing up that park for hours. He was probably in all those SUVs because at the AMC at my local theater, they used the whole side lot for the trailers for that. What's that movie he's filming?
You know who? Oh, man, this would definitely get Oscars. Yeah. You have Damien Chazelle direct a movie version of She Loves Me starring Mike Feist and Nicola Coughlan. I'm telling you, that would win Best Picture. It would make
I don't know about it. It would be nominated for Best Picture. I don't know if it would win.
Love it.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm thinking of who would do it in like Hunter King or Rihanna Fish. I would go with Rihanna Fish. I don't know who the leading man would be.
Yeah.
You know, for Hallmark.
Like if you got Jeremy Jordan.
Yeah, if you did it a musical. Or not a musical. They'd probably put Tyler Hines in it.
No.
No. Can you imagine? Tyler Hines and Lisa Cooper.
So good.
And I would watch it.
Of course. Oh, telling you, that's $1 billion idea there. Mike Feist, Nicola Coughlan, Damien Chazelle.
It's such a lovely story, and they haven't done a theatrical version of She Loves Me. I don't believe so.
No, and I mean, just the pro shot. That's the only thing that they've done, and
so they should do that.
And it's got such amazing songs. It's just a good story. The idea of two people falling in love over their words.
Absolutely.
And that is an attractive,
it's been often imitated as well.
Yes.
It's been often imitated. And
I think most of the time successfully.
Yes. There is something about the pen pal-ness of it, right? Yeah. That is very intriguing about how they fall in love through their words and the communication that they do.
But yeah, You've Got Mail. I just love it so much. I think it's so funny. It's just such a great script from Nora. And it really might be her best script. I don't know. She has so many bangers. It's hard to think. And When Harry Met Sally, which you could also, there is an iconic scene in When Harry Met Sally at Christmas, where he's the traditional Christmas growl, the Yuletide grovel. He's ready to do the Yuletide grovel. But yeah. So let us know what you think of our list and what you think would be on your list. And a lot of people would have Harry Potter. There's on their list different things, Iron Man 3. So let us know what you would pick as a hidden Christmas movie. And what do you think of this whole idea of the hidden Christmas movie? Do you like it? Are they kind of movies that you are attracted to all year long, or just during, to get a break from the outright Christmas movies during the season? We'd love to hear. And Terry, where can people follow you?
At Twitter at Flurry Heaven. Spouting nonsense.
And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. And also make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast. You can check out all of our Christmas content. There's lots. We've got a playlist. Make sure you check that out. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, really, really appreciate it. And make sure you check out the Patreon, that we have a bonus episode with 2 more picks that you'll definitely want to take a look at, and all the other many benefits from being a member of the Patreon. And we have the merch store with tons of fun festive designs. So take a look at that. And Merry Christmas to all of you. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.